Hello, I'm Joy Gutos. 50 years ago, a photographer for the Jacksonville Journal was driving along Jacksonville's West 26th Street when he saw a JEA lineman dangling from a utility pole. That lineman was JEA's Randall Champion. He was unconscious after coming in contact with a low-voltage wire. The photographer, Rocco Morabito, called for help and grabbed his camera. He took what has become a world-famous photo called The Kiss of Life. It shows JEA lineman J.D. Thompson performing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on Randall Champion. Joining me now to talk more about the photo and what it says about safety is JEA's Director of Electric System Construction and Maintenance, Jeremy Matthews, and JEA Construction and Maintenance Working Foreman, Chris Richardson. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Chris, let's start with you because your father, a JEA foreman, was there that day, right?
That's correct.
And what did he tell you about it? Walk us through the day.
Well, growing up, he never really talked about it. We had a picture of it from the newspaper in one of our desk drawers, and I can remember as a child opening that up and asking my mother about it, and Mom explained to me who the participants were in the picture. But up until I actually made apprentice at JEA, I never knew my dad was the foreman on the crew. It was not something he talked about.
Wow. Okay.
He it wasn't something he was proud of, but it was something, I guess, the friendships he cherished from the guys before the accident and after the accident. He and JD stayed friends for a long time. Mr. Champion, I don't remember him as much growing up, but he was a relevant person at JA. I can remember him when I started working at JA. He was still here before he had his second accident.
Yeah.
But he was a very nice man also.
And Jeremy, that day could have ended so much differently. We could have lost a lineman. What were those men doing right when it came to safety?
Well, I'd say it goes beyond just that day. And some of the research I've done just by being asked to be on this podcast, looks like CPR really wasn't introduced into the workplace until, early mid-'60s, and this was 67. So I'd say that there was a lot of training at JEA, CPR training, and that they were able to, because of that training, they were able to put that into action and save a man's life that day.
Wow, interesting. Okay. One of the things that struck me reading some of the news stories, too, was that the photographer had the presence of mind first to radio his newsroom and ask them to send an ambulance. And then he took the photo. I mean, that's pretty amazing, too. So, Chris, as a foreman, how do you use the story of this photo when you talk to your guys about safety?
As a foreman, I'd say this. In the training department, there's about a 5-picture segment of Rocco Morabito's pictures, and you can see him letting him down using Hurt Man Rescue, which we don't climb as much as we used to as linemen and foremen. But there are times, storms places we go to that we do have to climb. So I'd say the fact that we've remembered how to do these things and that they used it correctly that day. That set of pictures shows him being let down the pole, and it wasn't so much CPR, but they had oxygen and different things they were giving him at that time, and I guess his heart had restarted. Backing up, you asked earlier about things they could have done different or things that happened. From what Dad told me earlier, he said that they were actually working a de-energized line and that the transformer was open. In our old construction at JEA, the riser, that the power, they called it a low voltage on what we talked about earlier, but it's actually high voltage. It was 2,400 volts. The riser runs down next to the transformer. That would have still been energized in what they were doing, even though the transformer was out. So his extended reach is what got him in trouble. He reached out and made contact with his riser. And in leather gloves, if they were wet, could have been a major issue. Dryer gloves probably would have helped, but you're talking July 17th, it's hot. It was hot then. I know it's hot now, and you're sweating.
Yeah.
So we do things different at JA on our extended reach now. We've got policies that say that we'll use a certain amount of insulation rubber, and extended reach could be anything in your hand out that you're reaching towards, so you've always got to keep that in mind. And again, we're mostly in buckets anymore. We don't climb a whole lot. But there's always a possibility. We've had accidents even in the buckets. Yeah. But our gloves are tested monthly. Our trucks are tested annually. And if you have a problem that you even think there's an issue with that truck, we can have it tested today. So there's never an issue with having things tested at JEA electrically.
That's great. So, Jeremy, that photo is now 50 years old, and a lot has changed in the electric world. If an incident like that happened today, do you think the result would be the same?
We've unfortunately had a couple incidents similar to this. This year, one with a JEA employee during the storm restoration, and one just recently with a contractor. And there's 2 employees that are alive today because of the training that we do on CPR annually, and use of AEDs, a very important part of that device being on a crew. And it also not only has the defibrillator part of that, but it'll actually walk you through the CPR procedure.
Yeah.
So in a situation where you may need some guidance in a stressful situation, that tool comes in handy. So
Sure.
we've had to use those, and 2 employees are here today because of those devices and the training that JEA performs annually in this area in CPR.
That's great. That's great. Okay. This photo is recognized all over the world, and it's even on display with other Pulitzer Prize-winning photos in the museum in Washington, D.C. Chris, can you tell us how you found out about that?
About 4 years ago, I went on a field trip with my wife and a bunch of 5th graders from the patrols at Sheffield. And actually, Mr. Matthews' wife was on that trip also.
Oh, really?
So we all were there together on this trip, and we went to the museum, and they have a picture of all the Pulitzers on the wall in this museum. And as I'm standing there talking to the 4 kids, I'm telling them that, hey, these are people I know. This is a picture I know. There was a lady standing next to me, and she was kind of in disbelief about it. Well, understandably, it was Pulitzer Prize. There's no way you've ever talked to Rocco Morabito to start with, and there's no way you know these guys on the pole, and your dad was not there. Well, as you walk into the building, there is a kiosk that actually has photos that were taken of the incident. Well, Rocco Morabito's pictures were there, and there was just multiple pictures of my father, and I was not expecting it. So it kind of threw me off. It throws me off today that it would even still be there. But just the fact that he had taken the time to stop. And Mr. Morabito, when I talked to him on the phone, had said he had passed the crew and they were taking pictures. He was taking pictures of something else, but knew he needed stock pictures for another article he was doing on JEA. And the fact that he even took the presence of mind to know that they were there, and I think to come back by his Lord's hand in it, and the guys did the right thing, and
Absolutely.
It really came to most of the guys in the photo. I actually ended up either working for or knowing being here. So it really, it's been a big part of my life too. I know the Morabitos; it's a very big part of their life, and Mr. Rocco was a very nice man.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is an amazing legacy for JEA and for all of our linemen, and thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.